as terrible as Corona was, and still is, I feel like it was kind of heartwarming to see dentists, hygienists, and assistants come together as a community to try to help each other so that we can move forward and treat patients safely. We've done more scalings than ever, and patients are just so much more engaged with their oral hygiene. I'm just in heaven with what's happening in the hygiene room. One thing I say, and I've been saying this all along, that if my office can be closed for 12 weeks, I can now start to go on vacation. Obviously, I'm not going to take 12 weeks off a year, but I feel like I can leave for a week once in a while and the whole place won't fall down.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, the podcast, episode number 260. My name is Andrew.
And this is Michelle. What else is there outside of the podcast?
Every now and again, I like to throw that in there just to like make you like falter for a quick second.
Like A Tale of Two Hygienists, the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
The sitcom.
So, by the way, we're a dental podcast, blah, 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 all that stuff. So there's this thing, the Try Guys, right? We might have talked about the Try Guys before. No. Okay. So the Try Guys, it's a YouTube. I mean, they get like 10 million views on some of their stuff that's been out. I mean, they're pretty good. So there's a group of four individuals, and they try things, all different things. So right now, I guess they quarantine themselves as a group kind of a thing. Or they're
like a pod?
Yeah, like they're all married and stuff like that.
A Rona pod?
Yeah. So they're just like making sure that they're just like in their bubble. And they'll like, oh, we're going to make bagels from scratch and no instruction. We're just going to see how it goes. And then they have judges that come on and like taste their food. And then they go like, they do archery, they do golf against like pros to see if like between the four of them, if they can beat a pro. Or they did chess. Like it's so funny what they do.
Oh, I'm going to have to follow them. Yeah, because I would love that.
So they ended up doing like a tour where they had like a stage show. And then they had a movie that just aired. And so, yeah, dude, we could move into different things if we wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody really wants. I always say I need a reality show because some of the things that happen in my life are insane and dumb, mostly caused because I'm a psycho.
Right.
But
granted.
Yes, 100% my fault.
Right.
But yeah. Like the other day, like I was on the virtual happy hour, or not happy hour, like holiday party. And I walk out of my office and there's a dead bird in the middle of my hallway. Like
Trash cat doing that.
Trash cat brought me a little present. Feathers everywhere. Like, where was I? Like, it's literally 4 feet from me. I'm just like giggling it up, having a grand old time on a holiday party.
And there's massacre
while a bird is being massacred in the hallway. So ridiculous. So, but anywho.
Can I also say, though, about your cat, it's looking more and more like a puma every time I see it. Like, that thing has gotten huge.
He is getting big, but he's still he's small for a kitten. So if anybody, I don't know if anybody knows, like, well, we got thousands and thousands that listen, so probably not. But I got a kitten during quarantine because I'm a maniac. And I have a dog, an older dog, Lola, who's about to turn 14. And then I have a 10-year-old cat. And I was like, oh, maybe now that I'm home and I'm like seeing them interact, like the 10-year-old is trying to play with Lola, the 14-year-old, and like she's just not having it. And I was like, maybe Cookie wants a friend. Keep in mind, Cookie is the most elusive, skeptical little kitty. Like most of my friends that have known me for the 10 years that I've owned this cat have not seen Cookie. My nephews have not seen Cookie because she trusts nobody. She and I are very kindred spirits in certain ways. She gets a bad rap because everybody thinks she's just mean, and I'm like, no, you got to win that girl's trust. She ain't about this. Like, she
just misunderstood. That's all.
She's misunderstood, but when she comes around, like she is my snuggle bunny when she wants to be. Anyway, but she's also a fighter. She's a scrappy little one. She's out there like getting black busted eyes. Like I've had to get her eye drained a few. Anyway, so I was like, oh, maybe she wants a friend. How stupid of me. Like my scrappy, elusive, skeptical cat. I'm just like, oh, let me get her a friend. Like it would be that easy. It's not been that easy. So we found a cat in my neighborhood, like the litter. They couldn't find the mom. Everybody assumes that maybe something happened to the mom. So I'm like bottle feeding a kitten during quarantine. This kitten has definitely added a level of insanity to this house.
Well, can we also say it's a good thing that you are working from home with this cat around?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Right now he is, because I'm also been renovating my house for a year and a half to add to the insanity. And well, also let's start there. I was told it was a female cat.
Yeah.
About 3 months into it of being named Lila, I go and take her for him to his new shots. And they're like, so about Lila. Lila's a dude. And I was like, oh no, I have a strict no boys club up in here. So that's not possible. Like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's Lila's definitely a boy. So now Lila's Leo. Not that I was trying to like gender conform or anything, but I don't know. Maybe I did. I absolutely did. I did it.
But it's okay. I think it's okay. I think that Leo feels more secure with, with
Leo gives no Fs. No Fs.
That's true.
I literally call him Trash Cat on a regular basis because he brings in trash from outside. He's brought in a COVID mask. He's brought in socks.
Hold on. He brought in a regular mask, not a COVID. You don't know if it was laced with COVID.
Listen, this is not the time to be like, oh, let me just pick this regular mask out there.
It is.
No, this is a COVID flu.
You should have put it on to see if you would have got COVID, and then we would have found out the truth.
God knows where that mask has been. It's probably had all kinds of other stuff on there. And just brings it in because I have a dog door, so they all come and go as they please. He brings in roaches on every day, but he kills them, which I don't really appreciate. I live on the water. He brings in fiddler crabs. I've found him multiple times with it attached to his lip, trying to like fling it off. Like it's been an adventure, but not to digress from our dental podcast.
But we did 6 minutes of digression, and I love it. Yep. I love it every time.
Okay. Well, this is kind of a recap, and I wanted to bring up 2020 has been interesting. Like we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about human beings. And one of them is, we've always known how hard females are on other females, especially.
Amen.
Right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's bad. Well, what popped up on my, what didn't really pop up, I was actually out searching for a picture. And what popped up when I was looking for this was that video you and I did in Vegas when I had gum in my mouth.
Yeah.
Lost their love and mine about me having gum in my, like women. It was women. And I do believe that was women being mean to another woman. Like that was just some mean girl shit.
Because to be fair, I chew gum in almost every one of our videos. And no one has made any, and ever. Most podcasts, honestly, as well. I'm chewing gum. I'm not today, but usually I am.
Yeah. But I wanted to like say, as we wrap up 2020, like, I hope that we either have identified how we treat other people, and especially women in this industry, which is great that we have Dr. Pam on because she is a fantastic female dentist that lifts up women, has an amazing all-female team. I don't know. This just all kind of was playing in my head as we were like finishing, and I came across this video and I was like, God, those women were just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
God, I want to go find each one of them and smack gum in their face, but that would also not be me.
I mean, that would just be feeding into the cycle of women.
It would, exactly.
Women. Yeah.
Make them hate me more. But I just want to say, like, y'all, like, let's lift each other up. And if you are operating from that, I don't know, place, please, like, just clean it up, get it together, go hire Michelle Galloway to help you clean it up. And let's just not treat each other like that, because it's, and as snarky as I can be. And I'm saying this as somebody that's very snarky. I get it. But I'm trying very hard to clean it up this year too. But I can tell you one right now, I would not have gone after people for chewing freaking gum. Freaking psychos. Anywho.
let's throw it to the episode, the interview with that. Man, freaking psychos. And now here's Pam.
No, but Dr. Pam came on for this episode just to kind of like wrap up 2020. We're talking infection control. We talk things that have changed in her office because, God, this has been the year of uncertainty, right?
For sure.
You got anything to say for a wrap up of 2020?
If you haven't checked it out yet, expandfurniture.com is something that you guys should look at for 2021.
Buy it for me.
And then, go to our Patreon for Michelle. We don't have a Patreon, but we should for Michelle's Furniture.
We should have a Patreon.
No, I don't really have.
Finished renovation.
You know what? I don't have one. Yeah, this has been an interesting year. I think we should probably talk about what 2021 looks like for us, by the way, because so here's the thing. So I think one of the things as a wrap up that I'm really grateful for is how much you've carried this podcast, right? We've done so many other things with our business. You kept all the interviews going, you like single-handedly throughout this year and a lot of last year as well. And so we wouldn't be where we are without you. And I'm very grateful for that. But there's definitely a toll that has been taken on you for doing that.
No, that's kind of what's going to happen in 2021 is I'm going to take a break from the podcast for a little bit. I started my new position with Mouthwatch. So I have that full-time position. I have Level Up Infection Prevention and all the other speaking gigs that I do. And yeah, you're right. It definitely took a toll. I was getting a little burned out, which is crazy because my favorite thing in the world to do is learn. And the fact that we always get like these upfront interviews with people and I can learn firsthand is amazing, but it's also exhausting. And so I'm going to just take a little break from the interviews and stuff with the podcast. So you'll hear Andrew's voice now.
It's going to be terrible. If you guys all want to take a break for the next 2 months as well, that might not be a bad idea. We've already recorded several of those episodes. And I'll tell you what, Michelle, I don't know how you do it. I am so glad that we are partners in this from the very get-go because there's no way I wouldn't have kept going are we going on 6 years here in
going on 6? Yeah.
I never would have been doing it for 6 years by myself. And it's hard. It's hard to be a podcaster. I feel so
I don't think you just haven't done it in a while. It's going to be fine. You're going to get it. I'm sure they're amazing.
I'll tell you what, we're going to have some great guests on still. They're just going to feel different. I can tell you that. They're very logical and sequential.
No, some of our guests or some of our listeners are going to be like, finally.
They're like, yes, I finally get it
finally.
In the order I need to learn it. And then other ones will be like, man, this podcast is taking a turn.
Well, it's going to take a turn, but some people might really enjoy it. So, but we'll come back together and do it in probably a few months. But I'm just taking just a break because, I mean, you're right. Like it's been 5 years of a weekly podcast with no break. And I was taking it out on a lot of people, my burnout. So I appreciate having a partner that's going to take it. So.
Oh yeah, of course. Finally, I can actually do a little bit of my job. So, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, 2021 is going to sound a little different.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for you though, really. I'm excited that you get to take a break. I'm excited that you get to focus on, here's the thing. It's not really a break. So it's like you take on so many projects that you're like, well, now that I have these extra few hours this week, I'm going to do another project. You're going to take more on yourself because that's the way you do things.
Because I'm a psycho.
But then in a few months,
I
like
got some mental health issues.
You do. And then we'll come back and we'll do some podcasting together again. And hopefully by then, honestly, like the world's going to look different. Hopefully with vaccines and all these other things, hopefully we can start traveling a little bit more again. Hopefully we can do all of these things that we wanted to do for 2020 in 2021 and bringing in like some partnerships with people and doing all that kind of stuff. So 2021 looks
because man,
optimistic.
Yeah, we had so many plans, but I am just so I am so beyond grateful for listeners. Like we grew in 2020.
Yeah.
Like we grew in a year that was like impossible. People were losing houses and losing companies, and we feel, well, I mean, you and I aren't making the money, but the podcast grew. Like we didn't like financially grow as like you, Andrew, and Michelle, but we definitely have grown as a podcast and as a company because people had nothing, I guess, else to do.
They fell into the podcast
and discovered us, which is great.
Yeah. I think also we should take the time as we're, thanking our listeners. which we just can't say it enough. Thank you so much for like sharing with your friends and doing all of that. But we need to acknowledge that, yeah, we do have sponsors that you guys are hearing regularly. And we're grateful for you guys taking the time to click on the links or go search them out and being like proactive, because that really helps us then be able to have a whole crew. Like we have a whole team, which we also probably should thank.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have probably heard Brittany's name several times. Brittany, her role at this company is undefined.
We work for Brittany.
We do. It's like if she could be the COO, CEO, all of those things, president of the company, she really is. But she is marketing, she's sales, she's social media, she's keep Andrew on track for all the things that he's supposed to do that he never does, and then be mean to him.
And same for Michelle.
She
does
does
it for me.
all the communication back and forth through all the guests, the sponsors, everything so that we can still work our full-time jobs and be able to do this. Lacey, with all of the CE that she helps us with and the blogs that she's writing that are very incredibly smart, and I think they pack
Practical,
a punch.
clinically applicable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of our editing team, and there's multiple people. Podigy they've been with us for, I think Riley sent us a thing the other day. He said something like 100 episodes now that he's done for A Tale of Two Hygienists,
wow.
plus the network stuff that he's helped us with. And he and his team, Daniel, of course, we've referenced Daniel a couple times in this as well, and all the other editors that are helping us on either end of that. And then sponsors, of course. Thank you to all the sponsors I would be the worst at acceptance speeches, by the way. That was meandering.
The music has played for a while.
I've been like trying to get off stage and anyways, but there's so many things that we need to be thankful for and grateful for. And thank you to everyone. I think 2021 is actually going to be another year of growth for us. And we're really excited about that. Hopefully we can maybe put $1 or $2 in our pocket. Finally, Michelle, I think let's work on that. And then we'll be happy, and then it'll be great. So.
Yeah, no, this is great. I love that we're growing. That means, because when we started this early on, I was like, I don't care if 12 people listen, as long as they're learning something. And now there's thousands upon thousands of people listening and learning. And that makes my heart so ooey and gooey and wonderful, because I love people who want to learn and get better and grow and become better clinicians in this awesome industry that we are all in together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think Dr. Pam was a great wrap up, and cheers to the last episode that I'm on for 2020.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers to that. We'll enjoy this episode with Dr. Pam Maragliano-Muniz.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
It's time for the interview.
Oh, but I had something else to say.
We need to let the experts talk now.
Fine. Well, listeners, I have another fave on the podcast. Return again. I think we need to give like an award to some of the people that have been on so many times. But obviously, we keep bringing this guest back on because she's amazing and a great clinician, a supportive dental hygienist, and was one, but now is a amazing prosthodontist. Yeah, prosthodontist, right? I said that right. Okay.
Prosthodontist. Yes.
Dr. Maragliano-Muniz, and it only took me 2 years to finally say your name properly. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's just like coming home to be with you guys. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, this is always so, you bring such great content and such real life content to the podcast, and you really speak for all parts of the office and the practice, thinking from the eyes of the hygienist and from the business owner, the practice owner, the dentist doing the work. There's just so many different layers. I've definitely get caught up in my hygiene layer way too much sometimes. And so it's nice to hear the perspective from the dentist and the practice owner. So we really appreciate all the information you share with us.
Oh my gosh, anytime. And this year in particular, I feel like I am a practice owner. I am a practicing prosthodontist, because I've normally split my schedule so much that I feel like, I'm in my office most of the week, but not every week. And then I travel, several times a month normally. And this year has been so interesting because my focus has been so much on my practice, and it's been interesting and it's been great. And I feel like, I actually can speak with a little bit more authority than maybe I might have felt comfortable doing 2-3 years ago, just because I feel like, gosh, this year's been so heavily practice focused and it's been awesome.
Well, that's interesting to hear the awesome side of it, because I know a lot of people probably have not felt that it was so awesome in 2020. So I would love to hear like what's changed? Like this is like December 2020, like recapping of like what has gone down in your practice and some changes for the better and changes that you're like, yeah, could have gone without that.
It's so funny talking about a recap of 2020. I don't know about you, but I still feel like it's like May.
Yes. There's a meme out there actually right now. Well, no, it's been probably June since, but I still like live it. And it's like, I know it's May, but my mind is still in March. And I feel like it's November, but my mind is still in March.
Oh, so much so. It's been such a blur. But no, it hasn't been a great year in the sense of obviously everything with COVID-19 and all of the issues associated there. But for me, number one, I'm a half glass full kind of person. So I think it's important to always look for those little blessings. And they're definitely there, even though this year has been extraordinarily challenging. And it's no different for me. So I know this time last year, my office manager and I, we just sort of look at each other. We're like, 2020 is going to be the year. We can't wait for 2020. We're making all these changes, 2020. And then 2020 hit. Oh boy. Well, we definitely made changes. We were a little obviously disappointed. It seemed like we were off to a great start in January, February. And it was one of those things where, don't you remember looking at Facebook and Instagram and you'd see dentists dressed up like spacemen, and I just would kind of roll my eyes and I'm like, I'm not going to work like that. So this is ridiculous. And I remember, gosh, right before the office closed, I lectured in which was at the time one of the hotbeds of coronavirus in Massachusetts. And the hygienists would come up to me and they'd say, we have to take temperature now. The doctor's making us take pulse oxygen. I said, oh my gosh, that's overkill. That just seems crazy to me. And now all of these things that seemed so abstract and so ridiculous are now part of our everyday. And I think it's kind of interesting to kind of sit back and reflect upon how much we have changed as individuals, as practitioners, how flexible we can and have to be. And also some of the great things that have occurred. When we first closed, it was only supposed to be 2 weeks. So I was like, all right, yeah. I can do 2 weeks. I might even enjoy this a little bit.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, it's kind of a bummer, but it's not that bad. And then obviously for us in Massachusetts, 2 weeks turned into 12 weeks. And so that became pretty challenging. But for me as a practice owner, it was interesting because I learned who was with me and who wasn't on my team, and who was engaged, who wanted to up our infection control game, who wanted to play a role, who wanted to communicate with patients, whatever, and who really didn't. And so when I came back, long story short, I have a brand new clinical team with me. Every last person on my clinical team has been changed. And as much as I don't want to relive what happened in March, April, May, it was worth it for me because I feel like I finally have the team behind me that I've been really looking forward to having.
And, and I think the other part of that, like the flip side of that, was a lot of clinicians left practices. I mean, you kind of left for different reasons, and there's probably other people that left for many reasons. Maybe it was like caretaking of their kids that are now homeschooled, or elderly parents, and they couldn't risk going into the office and possibly contracting something that could, kill their family members, all the way to like, we need to make some changes. And the practice owner was not willing to make those changes. So they just felt unsafe. And to just a basic misunderstanding of science. There's been so many reasons for like this change in practices. I think you're one of many. Do you feel like that's the same, like that you feel amongst your colleagues?
Another thing that I feel where dentists and maybe even some dental assistants had an advantage over hygienists is I was still seeing patients. I was in the office, not every day, maybe even if it was 3 hours a week or 2 hours and sometimes one patient a week, I was able to work out the kinks with the PPE. I was able to figure out the infection control situation. I was able to just get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I mean, even walking into the operatory with shrouded from head to toe. And I remember feeling a little ridiculous and a little embarrassed the first time or the first few times I had to do that. But it was during an emergency, and all of a sudden, patients really never batted an eye at it. And I would walk by a mirror in my office and I would look and I'd kind of be startled, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I look like that right now.
Yeah.
And I was able to work out all of those feelings and all of those, feelings of discomfort while we were closed. And so I think that for many hygienists, when the office was closed, they weren't in the office. And then when the office was open, you were expected to resume a normal schedule, or what was as normal as you could be schedule as soon as you've reopened. And frankly, that's kind of a shock to the system to go from being home, doing whatever it is that you're doing to occupy yourself, even if you're calling patients or managing social media or whatever you're doing for the practice. That's so different than jumping back in with both feet, full head to toe PPE, not really sure how to be comfortable, get comfortable, etc. And that's extraordinarily challenging. So yeah, I think that I could see why many people didn't feel safe or continue to not feel safe. And also, I think that having the support of the practice owner is extraordinarily important. I know, gosh, I spent my 12 weeks obviously working for Endeavor and dentistryIQ.com, but I also shopped. I mean, I'm a shopper, and I was shopping constantly for PPE. And my office manager was doing the same. I would email her at 11 o'clock. My dad was sick during COVID. There were times I emailed her at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and she'd respond. And I, of course, wasn't expecting a response to my email about gloves. And she would respond, and she was like, I was just thinking about that. Look at these gowns. And it was pretty amazing to see also the community and my friends and people being like, hey, I found face shields here. Go pick them up here. Go get that. And it was really, in a way, just as terrible as Corona was, and still is, I feel like it was kind of heartwarming to see dentists, hygienists, and assistants come together as a community to try to help each other so that we can move forward and treat patients safely.
What I've definitely enjoyed with the PPE, well, I was like, scrub cap, yes. A face shield, absolutely. Because I always felt a little silly prior. I never wore a scrub cap. It wasn't like, and all I needed was this like boost. Like, okay, you could wear it. It's not weird. And I'm like, yes, I don't think I can go back now. I love wearing all of it, except that it was very much an ergonomic challenge. And I kept thinking maybe it's because I went a full 6 months between patients. By the time I came back to it, I knew like the breathing was a little bit more difficult with the mask and everything. And also I think a lot of it was that emotional component. Like I had not had that interaction with human beings at that level of like back to back to back. And it was just an emotional like drain of getting back into it, dealing with all the PPE. Like, even though I know how to don and doff properly, it's like extra. And like, oh my God, now what do I do with my loops? I don't want them to touch like, it was just so much. So do you think from even like an ergonomic standpoint, have you kind of come back from that, or did you have any issues with all of the new stuff?
Yeah. So for starters, I have to say that I have to have a set order in which I don my PPE. And if I go out of order, I'm all messed up. And then after lunch, if I pull, say, my mask off or my loops off and like things just kind of get out of whack, I'm all messed up for the rest of the day. I literally have to start over and then kind of build my layers, because I have my Easy Flow attached to my back. I've got my loops, and my battery attaches to my front. And I have, my loops obviously hooked to my ears. And so, but I have my mask that comes up over my ears. Oh my goodness. It's just one of those things that, yeah, I think it's a constant thing. It's almost like diet and exercise, that getting the ergonomics down is something that I think you have to kind of be mindful of and even be subconsciously mindful of all the time. I find if I'm not paying attention to what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm, say, focusing on a crown prep or something, I notice that I jut my jaw forward. Like if my mask shifts or my loops aren't, just to get my loops to sit properly, instead of just trying to fix myself like I would probably have done a year ago, in the spirit of not trying to touch things. Or if you've got a face shield over and now you really can't maneuver, I feel like I move my face to move my mask.
To move your mask, yeah.
It's really uncomfortable, and that takes a toll on your headaches, your necks, your back. I mean, all of the things that you're doing. And I find that it's interesting that even with my PPE, sometimes I have got a few different loops that I wear. And so depending on which loops I'm wearing, some face shields are comfortable, some are not. So it's just a whole thing that I feel like it's just very ongoing, basically finding what's exactly comfortable. Gosh, I had these, for lack of a better word, we would call them Lululemon plastic bags that we would wear. They were basically a blue plastic gown with a Lululemon hole for your thumb. So it was like the only redeeming thing about this stupid gown. And everybody in the office runs hot except for me and one other person. And so I was stuck with these plastic gowns for the entire 200 of them to get through them. And that was a dream to get through that. So, and I feel like because beggars really can't be choosers right now regarding PPE, you kind of are getting what you get and you have to figure out how to make the best of it. So I feel like it's ongoing, it's challenging even still. And sometimes you score something awesome, which is so exciting. And then obviously we changed the office and those things are kind of fixtures now and kind of part of what we do. And then kind of figuring out how some of these things work into the workflow is important as well.
I would imagine it was kind of very similar when everybody had to learn to wear gloves and you're like, oh, these latex and vinyl and all sizes and powdered and all that jazz. And like, then I had some dentists that swore by this only one brand, like God forbid if those were on back order, we were all going to hear about it. But I feel like it's the same thing. Like you get that PPE that fits your body, fits your face, fits your hands, fits your heat, your comfort level as far as temperature goes, and you're like, don't mess with it. But you're right, beggars.
It's so funny. It's so funny and so true. I historically just sort of because I feel like I can merge onto the highway. So if somebody really wants something from a PPE standpoint, I can work with it. I'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. Just get it. And so I always let somebody else pick out the gloves in the office. And so it was one of those things where we're like, well, why are we using these gloves? Well, I don't know. This one picked them. So we just sort of have them. And it just became something that we just sort of had. And then coronavirus and all of this happened. And so it became one of those things where we could pick out new things and buy something else. And you mentioned that doctor who says, no, I need to have this, or I can't show up for work. I feel like that's how I'm starting to feel about my cranberry carbon gloves. Those things are amazing. I didn't realize how uncomfortable my hands were until I found gloves that are comfortable. And I feel like the carbon, they're amazing. They also have another line, which is the Luxe line, which is so incredibly comfortable. They're insane in the sense that I can take my hand and grab the glove and stretch it off my hand and it doesn't break. It's just amazing to have a glove that's durable. When the old gloves I was wearing, it'd be a miracle if you put your hands on them and then all of a sudden, like sometimes the thing just spontaneously combusts.
Yes. And they also have a really great dispenser box, which means you only grab, and this is me being the infection control nerd that I am, you can grab by the cuff and not the palm of the hand, which so many of us do, right? We just kind of like grab in there. Well, I mean, hopefully you're doing hand hygiene, but the reality is you don't want to grab the part that's going to go in the patient's mouth if you don't have to. So grabbing by the cuff and like really being mindful of how you put it on. When that came out, I was like, duh, like why is there any other way to dispense a glove?
It's so true. And it's genius. And you're like, why did I not think about this before? And not only that, just the way that it's not like they took the gloves and sort of threw them in the box. when you take one out, only really one comes out. And so you know how sometimes you take one and then like 10 flop out of the box?
Yeah.
Yes. Like, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're like, okay, well, there you go. That was a waste. But yeah, so I feel like they've just done a lot of really interesting things that really aren't you don't really think about them and you take it for granted, but it makes such a difference to the bottom line. If you're not losing 10 gloves when you're trying to take one, that's a big deal right now and moving forward. And also being comfortable. I feel like, gosh, of all the things that make us uncomfortable, if we can find some pieces of PPE that can make us comfortable, I feel like, gosh, it's such a win.
Yeah.
Another favorite, I don't know if you've probably tried it. Have you tried the Z Shield?
Tell me more.
It's amazing. It's a face shield. It's a face shield that kind of hooks around
I was like,
your neck.
I know this name. Why do I know this name?
Yes.
It comes from the chest.
It sort of hangs on your neck and it protects you from the bottom up. And there's two different types. There's one that you can that hooks around your face a little bit more. And then there's one that's kind of more straight. But the cool thing about it, I'm sorry, I hope you don't hear my dog snoring. One of the really great things about it is that when you don't need a face shield and you don't have to walk around with a face shield day in and day out, you can actually take it and flip it down. So you can almost wear it so you don't have to take it off and put it somewhere and, whatever. You could just flip it down if you don't need to be, wearing it, or if you're doing something and you need to remove your face shield.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that to be so convenient, so comfortable, and just really a day changer in the sense of, we have so many things strapped to our heads right now that it's nice to have something that isn't attached to your head if it doesn't have to be. And I feel like right now, less is more when it comes to being comfortable.
I went through, I think I have 6 face shields right now, some reusable, some disposable. I have not tried the one that comes from the neck though. And that's been the one that I want to try. I've landed on I think it's called Hygienists face shield that clips to your loops. That was actually something I started with originally when I became a hygienist. I didn't have loops, but I had the face shield that clipped on the frames and you just put the frame on, and I always loved it. But then at the time they didn't fit over loops. And this is actually a wonderful transition because I'm very interested to see what kind of innovations you have come across, because that has been my silver lining to this whole year is I've been complaining about a lot of things that we needed. Maybe, and then some of it just like, wouldn't this be nice if we had this? And we have it now. We have so many new things, and it's been, necessity sparks innovation always. And I think we all really, and some of it has been innovation that's not necessary. And like in theory, that sounds like a good product, but in application, but at least we got some choices now. Any favorites that you have started in your practice?
Oh my gosh, so many favorites, I have to say. Definitely. Like I said, I'm a shopper. So this is like, if it wasn't an unfortunate thing, it would be kind of exciting to say, okay, you need to buy all kinds of stuff for the office, go. But I actually find that with the exception of PPE, I would say most of the purchases that took place from an infection control standpoint landed in the hygiene room. So my extraoral suction unit from Century Air Systems is in the hygiene room. I felt like I'm lucky because I have a person standing next to me, making sure that aerosols and, all different, liquids, et cetera, are
spray and all that stuff. Yeah.
And I think the worst part of splatter in my office is me shooting people with the air water syringe. I feel like for the most part, it's generally under control. But in the hygiene room, the hygienist by themselves with a slow speed suction really doesn't cut it anymore. So we picked up the Century Air Systems extraoral vacuum unit, which is cool because obviously it helps to collect aerosols. It also, you could just stand it upright and use it as an air filter, even though we also purchased an air filter. So that's number one. Number two, I felt that the hygienist really needed to have a high-speed suction. They have the high-speed suction unit, and somehow that thing stays beautiful and pristine in the hygiene room because nobody ever uses it. And so now, just as you're saying, necessity leads to innovation. basically my hygienist has 3 options now. So we're using Relief sometimes. Sometimes they're using the Dentsply PureVac HVE, and then sometimes they're using Dry Shield. And Dry Shield is something that I kind of forgot about in a sense from an infection control standpoint, because I use it day in and day out, and I have been for probably, I don't know, 2 years now. And it was something that I kind of took for granted. And then you think, oh gosh, you know what? The dental hygienist can use a Dry Shield. It doesn't have to be just in my room. And so this whole pandemic has been interesting because I think, and you probably on a greater level than me, realize that some of your infection control practices are being validated, which always feels good as well. So it's not like I had to go in and recreate the wheel. It was nice to say, okay, I need to pick up a few things, but I actually have been doing some things all along. So, and I find for me, I isolate one of 3 ways. I'm using the Dry Shield for some cases. Not everybody can tolerate it, but I feel like if you can, it's amazing because I feel like I can work the most efficiently with the Dry Shield because the patient's mouth is open, nobody's talking to me, we don't have to stop and let them swallow or do whatever they need to do. They can just kind of lay there and I can just get my work done. Isolation there's nothing better than that. And my assistant's still assisting me, but she can always stay a step ahead of me, which is fantastic. And I just find that I work so much more efficiently. I also use Optrogate or I use the rubber dam. And so I'm pretty excited that Carbon came out with black rubber dams from Cranberry too. So I feel like there's a lot of, great things that are available to us, but I feel like I've been kind of doing these things all along, but we really needed to step it up in hygiene. And so we are using, like I said, PureVac HVE from Dentsply. We've got the Relief, which is awesome and really comfortable. And it really and my hygienist has a choice now. And what I find is that she's always using something. So we are able to coronal polish. We're using the Airflow Prophylaxis Master from EMS, which is amazing. So if you get a chance to use it or get it, highly recommend. But you need suction and you need continuous suction for that. And so it's nice that the hygienist can do that. Another thing that I love so much is the Florida probe. And I know it's not new technology, but it's new for my office. And it was one of those things where always sounded like a great idea, but the hygienist never really seemed that excited about it. Well, new hygienist, new protocols, new everything after we reopened. And we picked up the Florida probe. Well, Voice works with the Florida probe, not so much the probe itself. Fan. Oh my gosh. And my thought was, well, if the hygienist doesn't have to go back and forth, touching the mouse, doing all of these things, it's only going to keep her and the patient safe and, surfaces cleaner, et cetera. And I cannot believe what that thing has done for my practice. The fact that patients have to listen to their probing depths, patients inherently, now these are patients that I bought my practice about 6.5 years ago, but these patients, some of them have been in my practice since the 80s, and they're just having a perio conversation now because they're actually listening to their probing depths. And it's not so abstract because they're hearing 232, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden a 5 or a 6 popped up and they want to know what that's all about. And so we've done more scalings than ever, and patients are just so much more engaged with their oral hygiene. I'm just in heaven with what's happening in the hygiene room.
VoiceWorks is one of my favorite things. And I always joked when I had this, because my outreach, we always had residents that would rotate through. And it was so funny because I would start doing it and I would always see, like, out of the corner of my periphery, a head and kind of peek around and like, what is that? What is she doing in there? Because it's very enlightening for the patient. I also feel like I am more inclined to capture more data because I can say limited attached tissue. I can say quickly, a clinical a recession and give those numbers. I can do all of those things like super fast. And we're all guilty of it. We're human beings and we're all going to try to cut corners. But I'm like, I'm already 5 minutes into this appointment. I'm running late. They had to pee, all these things. I got to do full bath charting. I'm like, oh, like we got recession last time. Like we all have that tendency to want to do that. And this just makes it so easy to like get it all because you got the headset on. You can just quickly say it. It's not that back and forth. And I would even go back and say, your ergonomics are going to be so much more improved because you aren't doing that do, click, 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 do, click, click, click. You're not going that back and forth and that repetitive motion that it starts to wear on our shoulders and our necks and all that jazz. So if y'all haven't, you've seen some of my IGTVs, definitely go back and look at that because it is a fantastic piece of equipment.
It's been a game changer in my office and I can't say enough about it. I just can't believe it's like one of my favorite things I hear. I can sit in my office and I hear, welcome to Florida Probe. And I'm like, there it is. It's so good.
Yeah. And you're right. The feedback to the patient, which you can change it. But I always think it's funny when it's like, warning, danger. And I'm like, okay, maybe we can make it a little less aggressive, but it definitely kind of piques your interest of like 6, danger. And I'm like, okay, okay, Sheila, take it down. It's all right. I'll talk to him about it. I got this now.
It's so true, but it's interesting that you can customize it.
Yeah.
We had a patient that said, I don't ever want to hear danger again. Like, okay, no problem. We can fix that. But you know what? It sparked a conversation that she hasn't had in years. So it's really great that we're able to do that. And it's, again, it was in the spirit of infection control, but who knew that it actually improved patient care? And I feel like between the airflow prophylaxis master, the Florida probe, I feel like, my goodness, our patients are getting the best care. And I feel like they're getting better care than they probably were before the pandemic. So again, it's the little blessings that we can, rely upon and look back upon. And when I think about 2020, obviously it was a challenging, difficult, terrible year. But I think back now and I think, you know what, there were some things that I'm really grateful for. And I think that it was kind of nice to have the ability to stop for a period of time, think about the practice, think about how I want it to be, what I want it to look like, where I want it to go, and actually start to make a plan for that. So I don't know. One thing I say, and I've been saying this all along, that if my office can be closed for 12 weeks, I can now start to go on vacation. Obviously, I'm not going to take 12 weeks off a year, but I feel like I can leave for a week once in a while and the whole place won't fall down. So it's nice to know that we can step away and try to have a quality of life and do something good for ourselves once in a while. And I think that that's one of the things, at least a takeaway that I got to take from it.
Very nice to hear. And I think quite a few, well, I don't know if everybody, I think everybody kind of, it depends on where you were in your mental stability of it all. But I also feel like I realized I don't have to bust my ass hustling all the time. Like I can be more strategic. I can be smarter about this. I can treat patients how I want to treat them without feeling like I'm compromising, just because I'm like, oh, I need to work that day, or so I'll go to this office because they always need a temp. But God, I hate the way that they practice or whatever it is. I need to take that speaking gig. I need to write that article, but I don't really like the topic. Like that definitely was my takeaway this year, was like, do what you love. And if you really do love it, like you don't have to go hustle and practically kill yourself and work 14 hours a day. Like so many dentists were doing that, and clinicians, I think also, I don't know what happened in dentistry, but I feel like, or with dentists, but I feel like a lot of hygienists, really kind of felt like I didn't love hygiene, and they kind of left and they were not coming back. And as much as I want to be like, how can you not love this? This is an amazing career. We do the most amazing things. Like, how dare you not want to be in this? On the flip side, I'm like, yeah, like best of luck with your like decision, because if this was a real wake up call for you, I think it's best that you go find something that you love and let somebody step into that position that truly does love it and can really take it to the next level. Like you saw, like your hygienist is just, she's amazing. I know her. She's the best. So I'm sure she's out there killing it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to have her. It was just, everything was very serendipitous as far as the timing and how it worked out. And I mentioned I was looking for a hygienist to Amber Auger, and it was like, hold on, let me find somebody. And she sent me two of the most amazing people. And if I could have hired both of them, I would have hired both of them. But I really just only had one position open, and it's been just a dream. And it's been wonderful. So I feel really lucky about that. But I think if this time off was one of those things where it told you, you know what, I don't like hygiene, I don't want to do this, I hope that you get to reflect on why and what it is that would make you happy. And I think that sometimes we're all just kind of run into the ground, and we're tired and we're overworked and we're overwhelmed. And that's not fun, regardless of what it is that's overwhelming you. And so I think that I hope you find what it does, what makes you excited. But I don't know, I feel like for me, and maybe I'm just different and crazy and like you, but I feel like, I don't know, I've always loved hygiene. I've always loved patient care, and I love dentistry, but I've only always done it part-time. And so even though I own my practice and I'm there 3.5-ish, sometimes 4 days a week, I've always had something else. And I think if I only practiced on patients and that was my only experience in the dental industry, I don't know if I would love it. I think that I also love to teach, and it's nice to diversify, and it's nice to have different things to do. And for me, gosh, the 12 weeks off flew by because I have a whole publishing job that I really spent a lot of my time focusing on. So it's nice to have a few different roles in life so you can focus on one when the other goes on pause. And, sometimes you're busier and sometimes you're not. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where find what you love. I hope you find it.
Absolutely. The other thing I think is really nice is that I think we all got to really appreciate and understand the supply chain a little bit better, and like where our products come from and how they're made, and supply and demand, all of that. I think we're all also, and from an infection control standpoint, what I love, but also I'm a little fearful of is things like your disinfectants. Now we're hearing more and more people like having a harder time finding certain disinfectants and getting products in. So now they're like mixing their own stuff and buying stuff at Target. And I'm always like, y'all read the directions, check your kill times. Like some of those might be 5 minutes. Some of them might be 1 minute. Some of them I read a label the other day that it was an enzymatic cleaner for your ultrasonic. And it was like, could cause fetal issues. And I was like, please, y'all read the instructions, because pregnant and taking x-rays and pregnant and nitrous, like absolutely need to be cautious. But I hear that conversation all damn day. But y'all are putting your hands in some enzymatic cleaner where the directions say don't do that because it causes infertility issues. So I'm like, y'all, please be very, very careful, because supply chain is wonky and crazy right now. And, as much as I appreciate sometimes these practices like, oh, well, that's no problem, I'll mix my own hypochlorous acid. And I'm like, oh, be careful, just be careful. But I do appreciate that we're having these conversations, and like people are like, okay, let's figure out what products we can use. And like you said, with the gloves, like now you're getting new gloves, and even though you might have loved that glove prior and you probably might be sad that you're not getting it anymore, at least you're trying something new, and maybe your team members are really excited about that.
Oh yeah, no, we're definitely not turning back. The cranberry carbon, it's like, we want that, we have it. And we're all just very comfortable, coincidentally and thankfully, all very comfortable with it. I think it's kind of a universally comfortable glove. Not to say that there's not plenty of other awesome ones out there, but that's kind of something that's I love now. And I'm like, oh, it's so nice to see the rest of them when we use them up so we can move on. I think another thing is not to mix chemicals. Yes, I know for a minute there, we only had co-effect spray and Cavicide wipes. And I was like, no. You're either a co-effect room or a Cavicide room. Don't put one in the other. So I think that's really important to make sure that you're kind of staying in one lane with disinfectant. If you like a spray and a wipe, which I do in my operatory, then make sure that you have the same spray and the same wipe and make sure it matches. I will also say that, and I hope I don't jinx myself, I'm going to knock on some wood right here, it's still accessible. If it's hard to find, say your usual distributor doesn't have it, just keep shopping and ask your friends, because it's amazing that you hear, oh, there's no disinfectant, you can't get it. But then all of a sudden you call this one company and you hit the mother load and you can buy 5 gallons of this, so definitely if there's not a designated person or a designated couple of people that keep shopping. I know we're still doing it with level 3 masks, which by the way is so funny. I feel like we've used level 3 all the time before all this. So I think it's interesting how thankfully clinicians are starting to notice the difference between a level 1 versus a level 3 and how important proper filtration is.
Praise the infection control gods. Yes. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. But and even now they're getting rationed out. Sometimes you can only get 3 boxes at a time or 4 boxes at a time. We're ordering on a continuous basis. And so if you can't get it today, does not mean it's not available tomorrow. So you just need somebody who's a little bit resilient and somebody who, just keeps chugging along looking for it, because they are findable. It's just a question of keep looking. You might have to spend a little bit more money for it, but as far as keeping your staff, your patients, and everybody and yourself safe, it's just so worth it. And so I feel like, yes, gloves have risen in price. Gowns are ridiculous. But you know what is more expensive? Clothing, because you don't have it. And so I think that it's just keep shopping. It's out there.
Absolutely. And you make a great point about not mixing. And I would even say be careful, because we ordered something. For some reason, that's my dog sneezing. Now you got my dog. For some reason, we ordered something and like some things are back order or like coming in. We're like, I don't remember even ordering this. And one of the disinfectants that we got, I was like, whoa, y'all, let's read these instructions for use. And I was like, this does not state cleaning. This says it's a terminal disinfectant. And I was like, let's go to the website, because if it doesn't state cleaning in its instructions for use, a lot of times you have to do a cleaning prior to, and that could be with a soap and water or anything with a surfactant. And it was like very on the label, this does not clean. It is a terminal disinfectant. And I was like, see, and I took a picture of it for my infection control courses. I was like, what a great example, because this would not have been removing the bioburden, didn't have a surfactant to bust up that bioburden. And we would have never gotten a terminal disinfectant on our, a terminal clean surface on each of our patients, for each one of our patients. And I'm like, that is scary. That's very scary to me. It makes me a little afraid. So I'm like, please, everybody, read instructions for use and make sure you're not mixing chemicals. Make sure you're using the proper PPE for these things, because these the reason that we wear PPE and the reason that we are so high risk and have always been such a high risk, like in the different jobs out there in the world, is because we are exposed to biological hazards and chemical hazards, in addition to percutaneous injuries. So there are so many reasons that we need to be donning the proper PPE, knowing the proper instructions for use. And this is why an infection control coordinator is so very critical for a practice as well.
I think so too. And I think, gosh, having a person, and not that we all don't care about infection control, because we all do, but I think, well, we all should, I should say.
Yeah.
But I think that having one person who is kind of the central heart of the infection control, making sure your protocols are up to date. And if you come up with something and you're not the infection control coordinator in the practice, you bring it to them. And then it's just something where that information can be disseminated among everybody, and everybody's doing the same thing. It's so important. And I think, other things that are really important is even sterilization, monitoring your sterilizer, making sure making sure your sterilizer works. But what if your spore test comes back at the end of the week? And because I get my results by email, and if my sterilizer fails, I need to know all of the packages that were dated, from when we tested it last to now. And so one thing I'm super excited about, I can't even believe I waited this long to mention it, is that I put in a new Steri-Center.
Oh.
And so it's awesome. So I got the 8X Steri-Center from Patterson. And not that there's not other great ones out there, but the countertops match my hygiene room, sparkly countertops, and that's what I needed. So priorities, Oh my gosh. So I had my M11 that I've had for a while. And then I bought a new sterilizer. It's like W and H or something, but it comes with the Lexa. Have you heard of the Lexa?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's awesome. So basically, it's a Bluetooth connected printer to your sterilizer so that after your sterilizer cycle goes through, all of a sudden, these labels, the right number of labels pop out, and it offers the cycle number of the sterilization, the date, the person that bagged them, like the whole thing. It's just boom on a label, and you just stick them to your sterilizer bags, and every piece of information is there. It's amazing. It's really cool.
You know, this is the one thing that I tell people in my infection control courses is like time is money. And a sterilizer, I heard this on this is not my terminology. I don't even remember where I heard it, but they called it a doctor down day when your sterilizer is not operating properly. And if you do fail a spore test, like you need to quarantine all those instruments. And that's a pain in the ass, for a lack of words. Like it gives you so much anxiety. It's stressful. It's a pain. And quite frankly, dentistry turns over instruments at a rate that we probably are not going to be catching. We're going to use them on somebody. Like that's just the reality of our, industry. So it's so important to follow through with this and document everything. But we stamp ours and write it out, and it takes some time, and it's annoying. And God, I'd give anything for a sticker. And there are 3 types of monitoring that you have to be doing, and one of them is mechanical monitoring, and that has that printout. It has everything for you. And so it tells you if you reach the pressure and the time and the load and the temperature. It has all that data there. And man, it makes record keeping so easy.
It makes record keeping so easy, but the whole workflow, and really my priority here was safety for my team, safety for my gosh, when we were closed for the pandemic, I became my own assistant in some days, and my office manager was always there. She's also a registered dental assistant, and it was really the 2 of us that were kind of keeping the practice going. And so we were cleaning the apps, breaking them down, sterilizing instruments, which I'm sure many of you right now are rolling your eyes like, okay, princess, you're finally doing your own instruments. But I historically didn't have to. And then I was put in a situation where I did. And it was eye-opening. And my hat is tipped to my hygienist and to my assistant because, my gosh, it's a lot of work. It's nice to be able to leave the procedure, sit down and focus on my notes when there's all of these other things that take place. So it was a reality dose. I'll throw it out there. But my sterilization room, the way it was not set up for the best workflow. It wasn't the safest. Instruments to dry them, we would kind of leave the cassettes out and just sort of let them air dry, or loose instruments would be out to dry before we bagged them. And it's like all of these things that we did that really just weren't that safe. We had cassettes, but not to the same extent that we do now. And the sterilization room right now is amazing. It always looks clean because everything has a place. And so even on a crazy, busy, ridiculous day, it doesn't look like a bomb went off in there. There might be a bomb somewhere in one of the drawers, but it doesn't look like that. And I feel like patients can walk by and see that we're a clean establishment. This is where we sterilize our instruments, and there's not even an instrument to be found. It's all just everything's tucked away, whether it's in the ultrasonic, the holding thing, the thing that where your instruments dry. I don't even know what the real name.
I don't actually know what that term is called, but I had an instrument dryer, and that was the best thing that was ever invented.
Oh my gosh. I already know that's where I'm going to spend most of my winter. Anytime I'm not near patients. And if that thing's on, it sends out the nicest warm air. I'm like I'm going to love that thing.
Like a little white noise happening.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. And then obviously we've got our sterilizers, and then we've got a holding area for our clean instruments. It's just such a cool, nice, clean workflow that anybody can walk into that room and know what step those instruments are at. So now there's no running the ultrasonic again and, reusing the ultrasonic. It's like you just know where everything is. And it's just such a nice, unspoken, clean workflow. And I also think that it's more safe. It's more safe for my team, and obviously, ultimately, more safe for our patients. So it was, I think, money well spent. And obviously from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm thrilled because it looked like the very Brady kitchen before. And now it's clean, it's pretty, and it's, definitely it's a great place for us to do our jobs. One of the most important aspects of our job.
So I'm curious, and I would love to just finish up our conversation around like patient perspectives and like the conversations that you've been having with patients. And did you start like texting people or emailing them and calling them, like expecting what the differences are going to be? And I'm also curious, have you found like highlighting your infection control and all the new products and your social media and things like that are a good idea? And how did you do that if you did do it?
I did. So basically what I did was I wanted to keep our patients informed without being annoying. So I know that I received everybody's response to COVID-19, whether it was Lululemon or, the car dealer, it didn't matter. Like, it was like, I was bombarded with these emails. And so I didn't want to bombard my patients. And so we did send a few emails out. Obviously, when our date kept getting pushed back, when we were reopening, we would send an email out. I created a video for our patients, and I explained to them what's going on, what to expect, the fact that we changed a lot of workflows. So obviously we brought in new equipment, obviously we had new PPE, but we also changed our check-in, check-out workflow. When our patients check in, we try to get them to pay up front, which is not something we've done before. When they finish their appointment, they get reappointed in the treatment room, and then we send them on their way. And this way we're trying to minimize the patients crossing paths with each other. And so I explained to them that this is why we're doing this and this is what we're doing. So expect to be asked for payment up front. This is, so just trying to give them a heads up on what's new. So it wasn't even just PPE and what we're going to look like, which I did put a picture of myself in PPE so they could, kind of get mentally prepared. Not the cutest photo, but it was just a 3-4 minute video explaining what's going on. And then anytime anything new came up, I would send it out in an email. Otherwise, things that were sort of happening, but not as email worthy, if you would, I put up on social media. So I did put my video up on social media. I don't know if it helped my patients as much as it probably gave other professionals kind of a framework to create their own video so that they say, okay, I can do that. I can do this in a few minutes and educate my patients. And so I did use social media for that, but I know that, and I guess it really just depends on the dynamics of your practice. I would say the majority of my patients are older and they're not all following me on Facebook or on Instagram. So I feel like it's just, if I wanted to really just get the word out there, that's just not the place to do it. But I did use social media for that anytime there's anything new. So I didn't really tout our new equipment per se. I did tell them that there were some things and there's things to expect that are going to be different. There's things that we're doing to keep you safe. But now what we do is we kind of celebrate everything, because even though this might sound like a pain or it might seem like whatever, it's new for that patient as they're coming in. And so even though you walk into the dental hygiene room and there's now this big suction that looks like it's from Dr. Seuss and you've got this and that, we just explain what it's about and why we're using it. The airflow prophylaxis master, I think, is probably the best nod to the oral systemic connection that we can possibly do in dental hygiene. And so I think that as we're bringing in this new technology, instead of just ignoring it and seeing if they notice it or wait for them to ask a question, I like to be upfront with that. And now we're actually using our front and our back door pretty regularly. So we've got patients coming in the front and kind of out the back. So there's sort of a constant workflow in which our patients are moving. When they walk past the sterilization room, we're showing them, look, we've just changed this. This is what we're doing. And I think patients have responded really well to it. One thing that's been really rewarding is to hear patients say, of all the places I have to go, this is the place I worry about the least. You guys have always been clean. You've always been safe. And I feel very safe here. And that it's just an honor to have patients say that.
Wow, that's great. And I love all the communication that you're doing. And like you said, like celebrating all the things. And though it probably is like, I wish I could press play for every patient, like, here is this, here is it. It is quite nice to like share that experience and all the fun things that you've learned and changed and that you're doing, even though sometimes it is a little, I always joke, I'm like, okay, well, give me like 5 minutes while I put on my face shield and my loops and my gloves and I do my hand hygiene and all these things. And they're always like, oh yeah, y'all, it's funny that y'all have to do all this. I'm like, it's great though. I love that we're super protected. But then, I have that opportunity to be like, so tell me, how has it been with your home care? Have you been, kind of, like the new mom where you forget that it's 2:00 and you haven't brushed your teeth yet, and because you're working from home, or have you been like super diligent? And you get to have those like great conversations even while garbing up, even with the layer upon layer of PPE. So I think it's great that you're celebrating, and I think that's a great advice. And do you have anything else like that you would say to the person about 2020 that's been so fantastic, that's really kind of changed things for you?
I feel like, to be honest with you, I look back and I know everybody's situation's different. My 2020, I know I'm making it now that it's almost over, which I know all of us are not too sad to see it go. I am leaving 2020 with a lot of gratitude. Professionally, obviously, we had plenty of challenges. Personally, I had a terrible challenge, but again, glass half full. My dad became really, really ill to the point where I was actually going to go into the New York City hospital to say goodbye to him. That's kind of what we decided as a family, as one person at the end of life could go bid them farewell. And since I wasn't working, it was sort of serendipitous that I could go and do that. And thankfully, I didn't have to. And thankfully, he recovered. But that was a terrible time in my life. And it definitely this year it has brought one challenge after another, both personally and professionally. But I will say that I was grateful to have the time off. I was grateful to not have the pressures of my practice when I needed to focus on my family. So I think and I'm only really sharing that because I did have legitimate challenges and they were kind of awful that I would really gladly not like to relive anytime soon. But I will say, just keep looking forward. This too shall pass. I do look back on 2020 with a lot of gratitude. I think I grew as a practice owner. I grew as a healthcare provider. I think I grew as a daughter a little bit, and definitely a dog mom. I feel like being full-time dog mom's a lot of work. And I think that as much as I am glad to see this year go, I'm looking forward to 2021. Hopefully, our numbers are more under control and we can get back to some semblance of our old normal, because I did like that a lot. I hope to see you in person one of these days. I miss seeing all of my dental friends. But I think that it's been crazy. But I think that we've got Zoom. We're able to stay connected one way or another. And I think that, just keep your chin up, stay positive, and, just look around every once in a while and smell the flowers. And, hopefully that there's some things going on in your life that you can be really grateful for. So that's kind of how I'm spending my days.
That's awesome. And I will tell everybody, if you haven't already listened to all of Dr. Pam's episodes that she's had on here, definitely go to our website and just search her name. You'll find all of that. One of my favorites was the Karyology series. Gosh, I learned so much from that. It was so great. I taught pH testing and all that jazz now, and I'm a perio nerd. So the fact that I learned something from restorative and decay and Canberra and all that jazz, it's a miracle. And also you can catch Dr. Pam on Dentistry IQ and, so many newsletters and within that publication, because you are the editor over there. And you have videos and articles and all kinds of amazing stuff out there. So if you don't sign up, or you haven't signed up, you should definitely go do that so you can get that newsletter. Anything else that you would like to highlight and send people so they can learn more from you?
Yes. So nobody even knows this. So I'm going to tell you, and I don't know, the couple people that listen to your podcast. One thing that is on the horizon, which I'm super excited about, so keep an eye out for it, is I am going to have a weekly news show with Tom Viola called Medical History Mysteries. And we are going to be talking all things pharmacology, medical history, and all of the dental implications and complications and things that can come up. And so I'm so excited to learn from him and spend my time every week talking with him. But I feel like all dental professionals should take a listen. It's only going to be like a 10-minute video every week. And so I just think that that's going to be, I mean, he's so fun and entertaining. So just for the entertainment factor, I think it's going to be great. But I think from the educational factor, it's just going to be on another level. I cannot wait. So I hope you guys check that out on the Through the Loops newsletter.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I'm also so jealous because I want to be a part. Like anytime two amazing people get together and collaborate, I'm like, but I want to come and play.
Well, maybe you'll just have to join us.
Well, I mean, I could definitely stand to like sit back and listen and learn because you two are brilliant minds. I'm so excited for this. And thank you for telling everybody. When can we expect that?
That's a good question. We're still in production right now. So there's a few videos that have, I believe that if they haven't come out, they're probably coming out soon. That's kind of before we decided to make this a regular thing. And so we're just kind of working on the intros and getting all of the ducks in the row. So I'm hoping sometime this month, but I would imagine at the latest, a January 1 launch.
Perfect. Oh my gosh. That's so great. We all definitely need that in our lives. Well, that's exciting. Thank you so much for giving us that wonderful news. And thank you again for coming on and chatting with us. And I'm so glad that you had so much to celebrate in 2020, despite the year that it has been.
Thank you. I think, trust me, it's not always easy to stay positive, but I think that the world just needs more positivity right now. So we kind of just have to take it one day at a time.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much. And all the listeners, definitely go check out all of Dr. Pam's resources and sign up for her newsletter.
Yay.
Well, everyone, I hope you had a healthy 2020. I know I joked a few episodes ago that like my new sign off is like, stay positive, test negative.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say, God, like I said last week, do not say Happy New Year's, say Jumanji. We need to get the hell up out of this game. This has been a bonkers year. I've learned so much about humanity and people in my life. And even though there's been some sad things that have happened, I'm not going to let those be forgotten, like move on and do better and find great people. And I don't know, not to ramble about my personal life, but I've been very disappointed about people and their behavior during COVID and protests and whatever. So I'm just like super excited that I can now move forward in 2021, hopefully as a better human.
Likewise, I feel like, I mean, I would love the world to get a lot better too, but I think that it only gets better when we start working on ourselves. And so I have a lot I need to work on for 2021. I think, now we've got that move out of the way on our end. I think I'm able to start focusing on things differently than I have been for the last year or so. So I'm hopeful.
Yep. Well, thank you guys for another great year. Thank you for listening. Thank you for Dr. Pam for coming on multiple times. Thank you to all of our guests that have been on in 2020 and, all the other 5 years worth of guests. And thank you to you listeners. You are amazing. If you have any questions, you can always find us at atalo2hygienist.com, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter. We would love for you to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We love interacting with you guys. So thank you so much for your comments and your messages, and just keep supporting the podcast and learning and growing and being amazing clinicians treating patients. Y'all are great.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.